Before America was split by politics, it was split by a line so powerful that even today, it still shapes how Americans vote, talk, and see each other. But here's the strange part. This line was never meant to divide a nation at all. In the 1760s, America didn't exist yet. There were just British colonies, growing fast, fighting over land, borders, and power. Two families, the Pence of Pennsylvania and the Calverts of Maryland, were locked in a bitter, century-long dispute over where one colony ended and the other began. Their maps were vague, their surveys were inaccurate, and every mistake meant lost money, lost control, and sometimes violence. So Britain sent two men to solve the problem. They weren't soldiers or politicians, they were astronomers. Charles Mason and Jeremiah Dixon arrived in Philadelphia carrying strange tools for the time. Massive telescopes, star charts, and clocks precise enough to track the heavens. Their mission sounded simple: draw a straight line, a definitive border. But what they were really about to draw was the future fault line of the United States. They didn't follow rivers, they didn't follow mountains, they followed the stars. Night after night, Mason and Dixon pointed their instruments at the sky, measuring latitude with an eerie precision that had never been seen in the New World. By day, they hacked a path through forests so dense that sunlight barely touched the ground. They faced swamps, hostile settlers, and rugged terrain. Native tribes watched them closely. Some warned them to turn back. Others escorted them in silence, their guides through an unfamiliar world. Every mile they cut felt heavier than the last. Then, something unexpected started to happen. As the line stretched west, people began attaching a new meaning to it. North of the line, the institution of slavery was slowly fading. South of it, it was expanding, becoming the brutal engine of the Southern economy. A simple property line, meant to settle a family squabble, was becoming a profound moral divide. By the time Mason and Dixon were forced to stop, exhausted, threatened, and unable to continue past the Ohio River, the line had taken on a life of its own. Colonists began using it as shorthand. North of the line meant free, south of the line meant slave. The map was no longer just geography, it was identity. Fast forward a few decades, the United States is now a nation, and that quiet survey line, cut through the wilderness, suddenly matters more than anyone could have ever imagined. As new states formed, one question haunted Congress: would they fall north or south of that line? Would they be free, or would they be slave states? The Mason-Dixon line became the invisible judge in the nation's most agonizing debate. Each new map update carried tension. Each border dispute felt like a countdown to a bigger conflict. Then came the Civil War. And while the war was fought across the entire country, the psychological battlefield had already been drawn by those two astronomers. The line represented two different Americas, two economies, two sets of values, two futures, locked in a struggle for the soul of the country. Even after the war ended and slavery was abolished, the line didn't disappear. It sank deeper into the American consciousness. Railroads were built along its path. Migration patterns reflected it. Political loyalties hardened along it. Over time, it even shaped regional accents, culture, and trust. You could drive across it in minutes, but escaping its influence could take generations. And here's the part most people miss. The Mason-Dixon line was never a law. It had no army to enforce it, no government mandate declaring it a national divider. And yet, it became one of the most powerful forces in American history. Why? Because maps don't just show us where we are, they tell us who we are. They tell us where we belong, and more importantly, where we don't. Even today, look at an election map. The red and blue patterns often trace paths that feel hauntingly familiar, echoing that old divide. Conversations change when you cross that line. Perspectives shift, assumptions form. A line drawn by starlight nearly 250 years ago still whispers into the ear of modern America. And maybe that's the real mystery. Not how a line divided a country, but how easily we let it. Because if one invisible line, drawn for a completely different reason, could shape centuries of conflict, culture, and identity, what other lines are we living inside of right now, without even realizing who drew them, or why? Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, consider subscribing for more stories about the hidden lines that shape our world.